My name is Earline Carter, and I'm 68 years old. Yesterday morning, I opened my mailbox and found a letter from the county clerk's office that changed everything. The letter was a routine notice, the kind government offices send when property ownership changes. But when I read it, my blood ran cold. Notice of property transfer. This letter confirms that ownership of the property located at 1847 Oakwood Lane has been transferred from Earline Carter to Raymond Carter, effective immediately. Raymond Carter, my nephew. I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking. I owned 10 acres of land at 1847 Oakwood Lane, land I'd inherited from my parents 30 years ago. Beautiful wooded property worth approximately $400,000. And according to this letter, I'd somehow transferred ownership to my nephew Raymond. But I hadn't transferred anything. I hadn't signed any papers. I hadn't agreed to sell or give away my land. Someone had stolen my property, and that someone was my own family. The next morning, I didn't just sit there crying. I took action. I called my lawyer, filed a police report, and discovered evidence that would send my nephew and his accomplices to prison for what they'd done. But to understand how my family managed to steal 10 acres of land worth $400,000 without my knowledge, I need to take you back to the beginning. I inherited the 10 acres from my parents when they died in 1995. I was 38 years old, working as a school teacher, raising my daughter Geneva alone after my divorce. The land had been in our family for 3 generations. My grandparents had bought it in 1940 for almost nothing. Over the decades, as the area developed, the property became valuable. When my parents died, they left the land to me, their only child. "This is your security, Earline," my mother had told me before she passed. "Keep this land. Don't sell it unless you absolutely have to. It's your inheritance, your nest egg, your future." I'd followed her advice. For 30 years, I'd owned that land and never sold it. The property was raw land, just trees and grass, no buildings. I paid property taxes every year about $3,000 annually, but otherwise, the land just sat there, increasing in value. Over 3 decades, the area around my property had developed significantly. New neighborhoods, shopping centers, schools. My 10 acres, still undeveloped, had become prime real estate. 5 years ago, a developer had offered me $350,000 for the land. I turned him down. 2 years ago, another developer offered $380,000. I'd refused again. "Mama, why don't you sell?" my daughter Geneva had asked. "That's a lot of money." "Because this land is my security," I'd explained. "If I ever need money badly, medical emergency, long-term care, something serious, I can sell then. But I don't need to sell now. I'm keeping it." That land represented financial security I'd never had before. As a divorced schoolteacher who'd raised a daughter alone, I'd always lived paycheck to paycheck. But knowing I owned $400,000 in property gave me peace of mind. Or at least it had, until my family stole it. My extended family, the Carters, had always been complicated. My younger brother Lawrence had died 10 years ago, leaving behind 2 sons. Raymond, now 42, and Marcus, now 40. Raymond and Marcus were my nephews, and I'd always tried to help them when I could. After their father died, I'd let them stay with me temporarily, lent them money, tried to guide them. But both nephews had grown into entitled, irresponsible adults. Raymond had never held a steady job. He'd work for 6 months, get fired, live off unemployment for a while, then find another job. At 42, he still rented a cheap apartment and had no savings. Marcus was similar, moving from job to job, relationship to relationship, never building anything stable. Both nephews knew I owned the 10 acres, and both had asked me, multiple times over the years, if I'd consider giving them the land or selling it to them at a discount. "Aunt Earline, that land should stay in the family," Raymond would say. "Dad would have wanted us to have it." "Your father and I inherited it from our parents," I'd correct. "It came to me, not to your father, and I'm keeping it." "But you're not using it," Marcus would argue. "You're just letting it sit there. We could develop it, build something, make money." "I'm keeping it as security," I'd repeat. "It's my decision." My nephews hadn't been happy with that answer, but I'd thought they'd accepted it. I was wrong. 6 months ago, Raymond started pressuring me more aggressively about the land. "Aunt Earline, I have a business opportunity," Raymond announced when he came to visit. "I could build rental properties on your land. We'd split the profits. You'd make money, I'd make money. Win-win." "I'm not interested in developing the land," I said. "I want to keep it as is." "But you're wasting an asset," Raymond protested. "That land could be generating income." "It's generating security," I countered. "Raymond, I'm 68. That land is my safety net. If I need long-term care, if I have medical bills, I can sell it then. But I'm not developing it or selling it now." "You're being selfish," Raymond accused. "Dad would have wanted that land to help his sons." "Your father would have wanted me to make smart financial decisions," I said firmly. "And keeping this land is smart." Raymond left angry. Over the next few months, both Raymond and Marcus continued pressuring me. They'd call, visit, send texts, always with new schemes for developing my land or new reasons I should sell it to them at below-market prices. "Aunt Earline, we're family," Marcus would say. "You should want to help us." "I do want to help you," I'd respond, "but not by giving away my financial security." "Then you don't really care about family," Marcus would accuse. The pressure was constant, and it was wearing me down. 4 months ago, Raymond came to my house with documents he claimed I needed to sign. "Aunt Earline, the county is updating property records," Raymond said, spreading papers across my kitchen table. "All landowners need to refile their ownership documents. It's just a formality." "What kind of documents?" I asked, suspicious. "Just confirmation that you own the property," Raymond said. "Name, address, property description, standard stuff. The county sent these to me to give to you since I listed myself as your emergency contact when I helped you update your address with them last year." I looked at the documents. They were dense with legal language. "Raymond, I'm not signing anything without my lawyer reviewing it." "It's just a county filing," Raymond said dismissively. "There's nothing to review. Everyone with property has to file this. There's actually a deadline. You need to sign by next week or you could face penalties." "Then my lawyer can review it, and I'll sign it before the deadline," I said, gathering up the papers. "Aunt Earline, you're being paranoid," Raymond said, frustrated. "I'm trying to help you." "I appreciate that," I said, "but I don't sign legal documents without my lawyer reviewing them first. That's my policy." Raymond left without the signed papers, clearly annoyed. I took the documents to my lawyer, Attorney Geneva Stone, the next day. Attorney Stone reviewed the documents, and her face went pale. "Mrs. Carter, these aren't county filing documents," Attorney Stone said. "This is a quit-claim deed. If you sign this, you'd be transferring ownership of your property to Raymond Carter." "What?" I said, shocked. "Raymond told me this was just a county formality." "It's fraud," Attorney Stone said bluntly. "Your nephew tried to trick you into signing away your land. Mrs. Carter, you should file a police report." "He's my nephew," I protested. "Maybe he just misunderstood what the documents were." "Mrs. Carter, these documents are very clearly marked as a quit-claim deed," Attorney Stone interrupted, pointing to the header. "Your nephew knew exactly what he was asking you to sign. This was a deliberate attempt to defraud you." I felt sick. My own nephew had tried to steal my land by tricking me into signing documents. "What should I do?" I asked. "Keep these documents as evidence," Attorney Stone advised. "And be very careful. If your nephew tried once, he might try again." After I refused to sign Raymond's fraudulent documents, my nephew's behavior escalated. They started showing up at my house unannounced, sometimes together, sometimes individually. "Aunt Earline, we need to talk about the land," Marcus would say. "There's nothing to talk about," I'd respond. "The land is mine, I'm keeping it." "You're being unreasonable," Raymond would argue. "We're family. That land should benefit all of us. It does benefit me, I'd say, by providing financial security. You're old, Marcus said bluntly one day. What do you need financial security for? You're just going to die and leave the land to someone anyway. Why not let us have it now? Because I'm not dead yet, I snapped. And when I do die, my will specifies exactly what happens to my assets. Neither of you is inheriting this land. That revelation made them furious. You're leaving your land to someone else, Raymond demanded. Who? That's private, I said. In truth, my will left everything to my daughter, Geneva. This is unbelievable, Marcus said. We're your brother's sons, Dad's sons. We deserve that land. You don't deserve anything you didn't earn, I said firmly. That land was left to me by my parents. It's mine to do with as I please, and I'm not giving it to you. My nephews stormed out, and I didn't hear from them for several weeks. I thought maybe they'd finally given up. I was wrong. 2 months ago, something strange happened with my mail. I'd been expecting my annual property tax bill. It usually arrived in October. But by mid-November, I still hadn't received it. I called the county tax office to inquire. I'm checking on my property tax bill for 1847 Oakwood Lane, I told the clerk. I haven't received it yet. One moment, the clerk said. There was a long pause. Ma'am, according to our records, you're no longer the owner of that property. What? I said, confused. Yes, I am. I've owned it for 30 years. Our records show the property was transferred to Raymond Carter 2 months ago, the clerk said. The tax bill would have been sent to him. That's impossible, I said. I never transferred the property. There must be a mistake. Ma'am, the transfer was recorded officially with the county clerk, the clerk explained. If you believe this is an error, you'll need to contact the clerk's office. I hung up and immediately called the county clerk's office. I need information about a property transfer, I told the clerk. The tax office says my property was transferred to someone else, but I never authorized any transfer. What's the property address? The clerk asked. I gave her the address. According to our records, ownership was transferred from Earline Carter to Raymond Carter on September 15th, the clerk said. The transfer was recorded based on a notarized quitclaim deed. I never signed a quitclaim deed, I protested. The document on file shows your signature, notarized by a licensed notary public, the clerk said. Can I get a copy of this document? I asked. Yes, for a small fee we can provide certified copies of recorded documents, the clerk confirmed. I paid the fee and requested expedited delivery. The documents arrived 3 days later. When I opened the envelope and saw the quitclaim deed, I felt sick. The document showed my signature, or what looked like my signature, transferring my land to Raymond. The signature had been notarized by someone named Floyd Martinez. But I'd never signed this document. I'd never met Floyd Martinez. This was forgery. My nephew had forged my signature and somehow gotten a notary to notarize the forgery. Raymond had stolen my land. Yesterday, I received the official county notice in my mailbox, the notice confirming the property transfer. I sat at my kitchen table holding that letter, tears streaming down my face. My family had stolen my land. The land my grandparents bought, my parents cherished, my mother told me to keep. The land that represented my financial security. Gone. Stolen by my own nephew through forgery and fraud. For a few hours, I just cried. I felt helpless, betrayed, devastated. But then I got angry. Raymond thought he could steal from me and get away with it because I was old, because I was family, because he thought I'd be too intimidated to fight back. He was wrong. The next morning, I didn't sit around feeling sorry for myself. I took action. I called attorney Geneva Stone and told her everything. Mrs. Carter, this is identity theft, forgery, fraud, and grand theft, Attorney Stone said grimly. Your nephew has committed multiple felonies. You need to file a police report immediately. Will I get my land back? I asked. If we can prove the deed was forged, which shouldn't be difficult if you never signed it, The transfer can be voided and ownership returned to you, Attorney Stone explained. But Mrs. Carter, you need to act quickly. If your nephew sells the property to a third party before we reverse the fraud, recovery becomes much more complicated. What do I do first? I asked. File a police report, Attorney Stone said. Then we'll file a lawsuit to reverse the fraudulent transfer. And Mrs. Carter, we're going to find out how your nephew got a notary to notarize a forged signature. That notary committed a crime too. That morning, I went to the police station and filed a report. Detective Opal Washington took my statement. Mrs. Carter, walk me through what happened, Detective Washington said. I explained everything, owning the land for 30 years. My nephew's pressuring me to sell or transfer it. Raymond trying to trick me into signing a fraudulent quitclaim deed 4 months ago, discovering 2 months ago that my property had been fraudulently transferred, and receiving the county notice yesterday. Do you have copies of the fraudulent deed? Detective Washington asked. I handed her the documents I'd received from the county clerk. Detective Washington examined them closely. This signature was notarized by Floyd Martinez. Do you know this person? No, I said. I've never heard that name before yesterday when I saw it on the documents. We'll investigate Mr. Martinez, Detective Washington said. Notarizing a forged signature is a serious crime. If he knowingly participated in fraud, he could face felony charges. What happens now? I asked. I'll open a criminal investigation into your nephew Raymond Carter for identity theft, forgery, fraud, and grand theft, Detective Washington explained. We'll subpoena documents, interview witnesses, and build a case. If we find sufficient evidence, which based on what you've shown me, we will, your nephew will be arrested and charged. Will I get my land back? I asked. That's a civil matter separate from the criminal case, Detective Washington explained. But once we prove the deed was forged, the transfer can be reversed. Your attorney will handle that. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Hit that like button and turn on NOTIFICTONS. Drop a comment. Is Earline doing the right thing? Should she press charges against her own nephew? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, Australia? Let me know. 3 days after I filed the police report, Detective Opal Washington called me with shocking news. Mrs. Carter, we've discovered something disturbing, Detective Washington said. Your nephew didn't just steal your land. He's already sold it. What? I gasped. He sold it already. 3 weeks ago, Detective Washington confirmed. Raymond sold your 10 acres to a developer for $385,000. The sale closed, and he's already received the money. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My land, the land my grandparents bought, my parents cherished, my security for old age, was gone. And Raymond had already spent or hidden the money. Can we get it back? I asked desperately. It's complicated, Detective Washington admitted. When property is sold to a third party who doesn't know about the fraud, recovering it becomes much harder. But Mrs. Carter, we're building a strong criminal case. Your nephew is going to prison for what he did. I don't care about prison, I said, tears forming. I care about my land. I understand, Detective Washington said gently. Your attorney will work on the civil side, trying to reverse the sale or recover the money. My job is the criminal side, making sure your nephew faces justice. And Mrs. Carter, we found evidence of a conspiracy. A conspiracy, I repeated. Your nephew didn't act alone, Detective Washington explained. We've identified at least 3 co-conspirators, his brother Marcus, the notary Floyd Martinez, and possibly others. They all played roles in stealing your property. Over the next 2 weeks, Detective Washington's investigation revealed the full scope of the conspiracy to steal my land. Step 1. The planning 6 months ago. Detective Washington obtained Raymond's text messages and emails through a court order. The messages showed that Raymond and Marcus had been planning to steal my land for at least 6 months. Raymond to Marcus, 6 months ago. Aunt Earline won't sell us the land. We need another plan. Marcus to Raymond. What if we just take it? She's old. She probably won't even notice if we forge her signature on transfer documents. Raymond to Marcus. Risky, but that land is worth $400K worth the risk. Marcus to Raymond. You know a notary who'd help us for a cut of the money. Raymond to Marcus. Yeah, my buddy Floyd. He'll notarize anything for $5,000. Detective Washington showed me these messages. I felt sick reading them. My nephews had discussed stealing from me like I was a mark, not their aunt. Step 2, the failed trick 4 months ago. The messages also revealed that the county filing documents Raymond had brought me 4 months ago were their first attempt at theft. Raymond to Marcus, 4 months ago. Taking Aunt Earline the quit-claim deed today, told her it's just county paperwork. She's old, she'll probably just sign it. Marcus to Raymond. Perfect, easy money. Raymond to Marcus, later that day. She wouldn't sign, said she wants her lawyer to review it. Old woman is more paranoid than I thought. Marcus to Raymond. Damn, plan B. Raymond to Marcus. Yeah, forge her signature. Floyd can notarize it. Step 3, the forgery 3 months ago. 3 months ago, Raymond and Marcus executed their plan to forge my signature. Raymond obtained a copy of my signature from an old birthday card I'd sent him years ago. He practiced copying my signature, then created a quit-claim deed transferring my land to himself. He then contacted Floyd Martinez, a licensed notary public who'd agreed to participate in the fraud for $5,000. Raymond to Floyd, 3 months ago. Need you to notarize a property transfer. The signature is forged, but I need it to look legit. $5K for your help. Floyd to Raymond. Man, that's risky. Notarizing a forged signature is a felony. Raymond to Floyd. It's an old lady. She won't even know what happened until it's too late. By then, I'll have sold the property and we'll all have money. She can't prove anything. Floyd to Raymond. $5K up front or when you sell. Raymond to Floyd. $2K up front, $3K when I sell. Deal. Floyd to Raymond. Deal. Floyd Martinez notarized the forged quit-claim deed on September 10th. Raymond recorded it with the county clerk on September 15th. Legally, as far as the county was concerned, I'd transferred my land to Raymond. Step 4, the sale 2 months ago. Once Raymond had the forged deed recorded, he immediately listed my property for sale. Raymond to Marcus, 2 months ago. Property is listed, developer is interested, offering $385K should I take it. Marcus to Raymond. Take it. That's more than enough to split 3 ways and still have serious money left. Raymond to Marcus. Closing next week, then we're rich. The sale closed on November 1st. Raymond received $385,000. He paid Floyd Martinez $3,000, as agreed. He paid Marcus $50,000. Raymond kept the remaining $332,000. My land was gone, and my nephews thought they'd gotten away with it. 2 weeks after I filed my police report, Detective Washington had gathered enough evidence to make arrests. On a Wednesday morning, police arrested Raymond Carter at his apartment. Raymond Carter, you're under arrest for identity theft, forgery, fraud, and grand theft, Detective Washington announced as officers handcuffed him. I didn't do anything. Raymond protested. That land was given to me. We have text messages showing you plan to forge your aunt's signature and steal her property, Detective Washington said. We have evidence you paid a notary to commit fraud. We have bank records showing you received $385,000 from selling property you obtained through forgery. Mr. Carter, you're going to prison. The same day, police arrested Marcus Carter and Floyd Martinez on similar charges. All 3 were taken to county jail. Bail was set at $100,000 each. None of them could afford it, so they remained in custody. As the criminal investigation continued, more damaging evidence emerged. The handwriting analysis. A forensic handwriting expert compared the signature on the forged quit-claim deed to my actual signature from various documents. The signature on the deed is a forgery, the expert concluded. The person who signed tried to copy Mrs. Carter's signature, but there are clear differences in letter formation, pressure points, and flow. This is not Mrs. Carter's signature. The notary's confession. After 2 days in jail, Floyd Martinez cracked under pressure and confessed to everything. Raymond paid me $5,000 to notarize a quitclaim deed, Floyd admitted to police. He told me the signature was forged, but said it didn't matter because the property owner was old and wouldn't notice. I knew it was wrong, but I needed the money. I'm sorry. Floyd's confession provided direct evidence of the conspiracy. The money trail. Bank records showed the flow of money. Raymond received $385,000 from the land sale. Raymond paid Floyd Martinez $3,000. Raymond paid Marcus Carter $50,000. Raymond still had approximately $320,000, some spent on a new car and other purchases. My testimony. I was asked to provide testimony confirming I never signed the deed, never met Floyd Martinez, and never authorized the transfer of my property. I never signed any document transferring my land, I stated under oath. I never gave my nephew permission to sell my property. This was theft, pure and simple. While Detective Washington handled the criminal investigation, my attorney Geneva Stone filed a civil lawsuit. We sued Raymond Carter for fraud, conversion stealing property, and unjust enrichment. Marcus Carter as a co-conspirator who knowingly received stolen money. Floyd Martinez for fraud and conspiracy. The developer who bought the land to reverse the sale and return the property. The lawsuit argued that because the property transfer was based on a forged document, the entire chain of transactions was void. The developer shouldn't have to lose money, but the land should be returned to me. This is going to be complicated, Attorney Stone warned me. The developer acted in good faith. They didn't know the deed was forged. They paid $385,000 for the land. Courts try to protect innocent purchasers. But it's my land, I protested. I never sold it. I know, Attorney Stone said, and legally you should get it back. But the developer will argue they purchased it legitimately and shouldn't be punished for Raymond's fraud. We might end up in a situation where you get the money but not the actual land. I want the land, I said firmly. That's my family's property. My mother told me to keep it. I don't want $385,000. I want my 10 acres back. When the developer, Oakwood Development Company, was served with our lawsuit, their response was swift and aggressive. Their lawyer, Attorney Curtis Brooks, argued that Oakwood was an innocent purchaser for value, who should be protected. My client conducted all proper due diligence, Attorney Brooks argued. They reviewed the recorded deed showing Raymond Carter as owner. They verified he had clear title. They paid fair market value. Oakwood did everything right. They shouldn't lose their property because of Raymond Carter's fraud. But the property wasn't his to sell, Attorney Stone countered. The deed transferring it to him was forged. My client never gave up her property rights. Then your client's remedy is against Raymond Carter, Attorney Brooks argued. Sue him for the money he stole, but don't take away property my client legally purchased. The legal battle was just beginning. 3 weeks after Raymond's arrest, his public defender, Attorney Opal Reed, contacted Attorney Stone with a message. Raymond wants to speak with his aunt, Attorney Reed said. He says he wants to apologize and discuss making this right. Is this a trick? Attorney Stone asked me. Do you want to talk to him? Part of me didn't want to see Raymond. He'd betrayed me, stolen from me, caused me weeks of stress and heartbreak. But another part of me wanted to look him in the eye and ask why. I'll talk to him, I decided, but at the jail with my lawyer present. 2 days later, I sat across from Raymond in a jail visitation room. He wore an orange jumpsuit. He looked exhausted and defeated. Aunt Earline, I'm so sorry, Raymond said, tears in his eyes. Why did you do it? I asked, my voice cold. I was desperate, Raymond claimed. I needed money. The land was just sitting there. I thought you'd never even notice." "You thought I wouldn't notice someone stealing 10 acres worth $400,000. I interrupted, incredulous. "I thought by the time you found out, it would be too late to do anything," Raymond admitted. "I thought you'd just accept it." "You stole my family's land," I said, anger rising. "The land my grandparents bought, the land my mother told me to protect, my financial security, and you thought I'd just accept it." "I didn't think you'd need it," Raymond said weakly. "You have your teacher's pension." "That's $1,800 a month," I interrupted. "Do you know how fast that disappears with medical bills, with long-term care if I need it? That land was my safety net, Raymond, and you stole it." "I know," Raymond said, crying now. "I'm sorry, I made a terrible mistake." "This wasn't a mistake," I corrected. "You planned this for months. You recruited your brother and a corrupt notary. You forged my signature. You sold my land. You spent my money. Those weren't mistakes, those were crimes." "What do you want me to do?" Raymond asked. "I want you to tell the developer to give me back my land," I said. "You can keep your money. Actually, no, the court will take that as restitution. But I want my land back." "I can't make the developer do anything," Raymond said. "They bought it legally as far as they knew." "Because you forged documents," I shouted. "Raymond, you don't get to destroy my life and then claim you can't fix it." "I'm facing felony charges," Raymond said. "I'm probably going to prison. Isn't that punishment enough?" "No," I said flatly. "Punishment enough would be me getting my land back and you spending years in prison. That would be justice." 1 week after my confrontation with Raymond, Detective Washington called me with disturbing news. "Mrs. Carter, we've discovered your nephew has done this before," Detective Washington said. "Done what before?" I asked, confused. "Stolen property from elderly relatives," Detective Washington explained. "We've found 2 other cases where Raymond befriended elderly family members, gained their trust, then forged documents to steal their property." "Who?" I asked, shocked. "An elderly cousin named Letty Brooks, age 79, Detective Washington said. 5 years ago, Raymond convinced Letty to let him help manage her rental property. He forged her signature on documents transferring the property to himself, then sold it for $180,000. "Did she get it back?" I asked. "No," Detective Washington said. "By the time Letty discovered the theft, Raymond had sold the property and spent the money. She sued him but never recovered her loss. She thought it was a one-time thing and didn't press criminal charges." "Who else?" I asked. "Your deceased brother Lawrence's widow, Raymond's stepmother, Geneva Phillips," Detective Washington said. 3 years ago, Raymond forged Geneva's signature on documents refinancing her house. He pocketed the $75,000 refinance check. Geneva reported it to police, but Raymond claimed it was a misunderstanding. Geneva was in poor health and didn't have the energy to fight. She dropped the complaint. "Raymond is a serial predator," I said, horrified. "Yes," Detective Washington confirmed. "And Mrs. Carter, if you hadn't fought back, if you just accepted the loss like his previous victims, Raymond would have kept doing this to other elderly relatives." Before I continue, kindly subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on NOTIFICTONS. Drop a comment. Should Raymond go to prison for life? Should Earline get her land back? Where are you watching from? 4 months after I discovered my land had been stolen, I sat in a courtroom watching my nephew Raymond stand trial for what he'd done to me and 2 other elderly victims. The charges against Raymond were extensive. 3 counts of identity theft, 1 for each victim. Me, Letty Brooks, and Geneva Phillips. 3 counts of forgery. 3 counts of fraud. 3 counts of grand theft. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Marcus Carter and Floyd Martinez faced similar charges for their roles in stealing my land specifically. Raymond sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, no longer able to afford bail or a private lawyer. His public defender, attorney Opal Reed, looked overwhelmed by the mountain of evidence against her client. But I knew this trial would determine more than just Raymond's punishment. It would also impact whether I could get my land back. District Attorney Minnie Foster gave a powerful opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a predator who systematically targeted elderly family members and stole their property through forgery and fraud, DA Foster began. The defendant, Raymond Carter, isn't just a thief. He's a serial predator who used his position as a trusted family member to exploit vulnerable elderly relatives. She pointed to Raymond. Over 5 years, the defendant stole from 3 elderly victims, his aunt, his cousin, and his stepmother. Total theft, over $640,000. He used the same method each time: befriend the victim, gain access to their information, forge their signatures, steal their property. The evidence will show that Raymond Carter is a calculating criminal who views elderly family members not as people to love and protect, but as opportunities to exploit, DA Foster concluded. And it's time to hold him accountable. On the second day of trial, I was called to testify. DA Foster walked me through my story. Owning the land for 30 years, Raymond's escalating demands that I give him the property, his attempt to trick me into signing fraudulent documents, discovering my land had been stolen, and the devastating impact. Mrs. Carter, when did you first realize your property had been stolen? DA Foster asked. When I received the county notice in the mail, I explained. It said ownership had been transferred to Raymond, but I'd never authorized any transfer. What did you do? DA Foster prompted. I called the county clerk's office, I said. They sent me copies of the recorded deed. When I saw it, I knew immediately the signature was forged. That wasn't my signature. How did this theft impact you? DA Foster asked. I took a deep breath. That land represented my financial security. My parents left it to me with instructions to keep it as my safety net. I'm 68 years old, living on a teacher's pension of $1,800 a month. That $400,000 in land was my security if I needed medical care or long-term care. Raymond didn't just steal property. He stole my peace of mind. Mrs. Carter, did you ever give your nephew permission to sell your land? DA Foster asked. Never, I said firmly. I told him repeatedly the land was not for sale. When he brought me documents to sign, I refused and had my lawyer review them. My lawyer discovered they were fraudulent. I never consented to any transfer. Raymond's lawyer, Attorney Opal Reed, tried to create doubt during cross-examination. Mrs. Carter, isn't it true that you're 68 years old? Attorney Reed began. Yes, I confirmed. And isn't it possible that you forgot signing documents? Attorney Reed suggested. That maybe you did sign a transfer but don't remember. No, I said firmly. I never signed any documents transferring my land. I remember very clearly refusing to sign when Raymond asked me to. But you admit your nephew visited you frequently, Attorney Reed pressed. Isn't it possible he brought papers for you to sign and you signed them without reading carefully? I never signed documents without reading them and having my lawyer review them, I said. That's my policy, and my lawyer confirmed I never signed the deed that was recorded. Mrs. Carter, you testified that you told your nephew you weren't leaving the land to him in your will, Attorney Reed said. Isn't it true you were trying to punish your nephew by excluding him from your inheritance? I wasn't punishing anyone, I said. I was making decisions about my own property. Raymond isn't entitled to my land just because he's my nephew. But you were angry at him for asking about the land, Attorney Reed suggested. I was frustrated that he kept pressuring me, I corrected. But I wasn't angry until he stole from me. That's when I became angry. The second victim, Letty Brooks, testified about her experience with Raymond. Letty was 79 years old, frail but sharp-minded. Ms. Brooks, how did you know the defendant? DA Foster asked. He's my cousin, Letty explained. His father Lawrence and my father were brothers. We've been family all our lives. What happened with your rental property? DA Foster asked. About 5 years ago, Raymond offered to help me manage my rental property, Letty said. I was 74, and dealing with tenants and repairs was getting difficult. Raymond said he'd handle everything. I trusted him because he was family. What did Raymond do? DA Foster prompted. He forged my signature on documents transferring the property into his name, Letty said, her voice shaking with anger. Then he sold my property for $180,000. I didn't find out until months later when I stopped receiving rental income and started asking questions. Did you recover your property or money? DA Foster asked. No, Letty said sadly. By the time I discovered what happened, Raymond had sold the property and spent the money. I sued him in civil court, but I never recovered anything. I lost my rental property I'd owned for 30 years, because I trusted my cousin. Ms. Brooks, did you report this to the police? DA Foster asked. I considered it, Letty admitted. But Raymond is family. I thought maybe it was a one-time mistake. I didn't want to send family to prison. Now I wish I had. If I'd pressed charges then, maybe he wouldn't have stolen from Earline and Geneva. The third victim, Geneva Phillips, Raymond's stepmother, gave emotional testimony via video recording. Geneva had passed away 6 months ago, but her deposition from the civil case she'd filed against Raymond years ago was admitted as evidence. In the video, a frail 72-year-old woman described how her stepson had betrayed her. Raymond offered to help me refinance my house, Geneva said in the recording. He said he could get me a better interest rate. I trusted him because he was my late husband's son. I signed papers he told me were refinancing documents. But they weren't refinancing documents, DA Foster's voice asked on the recording. No, Geneva said. Raymond forged my signature on the actual refinancing papers, took out $75,000 against my house, and kept the money. I didn't discover it until months later when the bank sent me new mortgage papers. What did you do? DA Foster asked. I called the police, Geneva said, but Raymond told them it was a misunderstanding. He said I'd agreed to the refinance and just forgot. By that point, I was sick with cancer and didn't have the energy to fight. I dropped the complaint. Do you regret dropping the complaint? DA Foster asked. Yes, Geneva said, tears streaming down her face. I should have pressed charges. Maybe it would have stopped him from hurting others. The video ended with Geneva's image frozen on the screen, a victim who'd passed away without ever seeing justice. Marcus Carter, facing his own charges, tried to minimize his role. Mr. Carter, what was your involvement in stealing your aunt's land? DA Foster asked during cross-examination. I didn't steal anything, Marcus claimed. Raymond told me he'd bought the land from Aunt Earline. He paid me $50,000 to help him with the sale paperwork. Mr. Carter, we have text messages where you and Raymond discussed forging your aunt's signature, DA Foster said. You wrote, she's old. She probably won't notice if we forge her signature. Does that sound like someone who thought the land was legitimately purchased? Marcus had no good answer. You knew your brother was stealing from your aunt, DA Foster pressed. You helped plan the theft. You received $50,000 in stolen money. You're not an innocent bystander, you're a co-conspirator. Floyd Martinez, the corrupt notary, had agreed to testify against Raymond in exchange for a reduced sentence. Mr. Martinez, describe your interaction with Raymond Carter, DA Foster said. Raymond contacted me 3 months before the property's sale, Floyd explained. He said he had a quitclaim deed that needed to be notarized, but the signature was forged. He offered me $5,000 to notarize it anyway. Did you know this was illegal? DA Foster asked. Yes, Floyd admitted. Notarizing a document you know is forged is a felony, but I needed money. I agreed to do it. Did you witness Mrs. Carter sign the document? DA Foster asked. No, Floyd said. I never met Mrs. Carter. I just notarized Raymond's forged signature as if I'd witnessed her sign it. Why are you testifying today? DA Foster asked. Because what I did was wrong, Floyd said. I helped Raymond steal from his elderly aunt. I'm facing my own charges for that, but I want to take responsibility and help make sure Raymond faces consequences too. Against his lawyer's advice, Raymond chose to testify in his own defense. It was a disaster. Mr. Carter, Why did you forge your aunt's signature? DA Foster asked during cross-examination. I didn't think of it as stealing, Raymond claimed. The land was just sitting there unused. I thought if I developed it or sold it, the money could help the whole family. By help the whole family, you mean keep $332,000 for yourself? DA Foster challenged. I was going to share the money eventually, Raymond said weakly. Mr. Carter, we have text messages showing you plan to forge your aunt's signature months in advance, DA Foster said. You wrote, she's old. She won't notice. Does that sound like someone who planned to share the money? Raymond had no response. Mr. Carter, you also stole from Letty Brooks and Geneva Phillips, DA Foster continued. 3 elderly women, 3 forged signatures, 3 thefts totaling over $640,000. You're not a family member who made a mistake. You're a serial predator who targets vulnerable elderly relatives. I made mistakes, Raymond admitted, but I'm not a predator. You stole from your dying stepmother, DA Foster interrupted. A woman with cancer who was too sick to fight back. If that's not predatory behavior, what is? Raymond broke down crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Are you sorry you stole or sorry you got caught? DA Foster asked. Raymond had no answer. After 3 days of testimony and only 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Thaddeus Martinez asked. We have, Your Honor, the jury foreman said. On the charge of identity theft against Earline Carter, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the charge of forgery against Earline Carter, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the charge of fraud against Earline Carter, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the charge of grand theft against Earline Carter, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. The same verdicts came for the charges related to Letty Brooks and Geneva Phillips. Guilty on all counts. Raymond collapsed in his chair, sobbing. His lawyer tried to comfort him, but there was nothing to say. Marcus Carter was also found guilty on all conspiracy charges related to my case. Floyd Martinez, having testified for the prosecution, received a reduced verdict, guilty on lesser charges. Judge Martinez scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks later. While the criminal trial determined Raymond's guilt, a separate civil trial determined whether I'd get my land back. The developer, Oakwood Development Company, argued they were innocent purchasers who shouldn't lose property they'd legally bought. Your Honor, my client conducted all proper due diligence, Attorney Curtis Brooks argued. They verified Raymond Carter was the recorded owner. They paid fair market value of $385,000. Oakwood acted in good faith. They shouldn't be punished for Raymond's crimes. My attorney, Geneva Stone, countered with a different argument. Your Honor, the deed transferring property to Raymond Carter was forged, Attorney Stone said. Because it was forged, the transfer was void from the beginning. Raymond never had legal ownership. Therefore, he couldn't legally sell property he didn't own. The sale to Oakwood Development was based on a fraudulent foundation. But Oakwood didn't know about the forgery, Judge Viola Richardson pointed out. They're innocent parties. Innocent parties can still lose property purchased through fraud, Attorney Stone argued. The law protects original owners whose property was stolen. Mrs. Carter never gave up her ownership rights. Therefore, she should get her property back. Judge Richardson took the matter under advisement. 2 weeks later, she issued her ruling. This is a difficult case because both parties, Mrs. Carter and Oakwood Development, are victims of Raymond Carter's fraud, Judge Richardson said. However, the law is clear. When property is stolen through forged documents, the original owner retains ownership rights. Therefore, I'm ordering the property transfer from Raymond Carter to Oakwood Development to be voided, Judge Richardson ruled. Ownership of the 10 acres at 1847 Oakwood Lane is returned to Earline Carter. I almost cried with relief. I was getting my land back. However, Judge Richardson continued, Oakwood Development paid $385,000 in good faith for property they believed was legitimately for sale. They're entitled to recover their money. I'm ordering Raymond Carter to pay Oakwood Development $385,000 in restitution. Additionally, I'm ordering Raymond Carter to pay Earline Carter $100,000 in damages for the emotional distress and legal fees she incurred as a result of his fraud, Judge Richardson concluded. Raymond would owe nearly $500,000, money he no longer had. But I'd got my land back. That's all that mattered. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on NOTIFICTONS. Drop a comment. Is getting the land back enough justice? How many years should Raymond get? Where are you watching from? 3 weeks after the guilty verdict, I returned to court for Raymond's sentencing hearing. This was the moment that would determine how many years my nephew would spend in prison for stealing from 3 elderly women, including his own aunt. I sat in the courtroom gallery with Letty Brooks beside me. Geneva Phillips had passed away before seeing justice, but her daughter attended on her mother's behalf. Raymond was brought in wearing his orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, looking defeated and exhausted. 4 months in jail awaiting trial had aged him. He no longer looked like the confident man who'd thought he could steal my land and get away with it. Judge Thaddeus Martinez reviewed the case file, then looked at Raymond with disgust. Mr. Carter, I've reviewed your criminal history, the evidence presented at trial, and the victim impact statements, Judge Martinez said. What you did is among the most despicable crimes I've seen in my 30 years on the bench. Before sentencing, Judge Martinez allowed each victim to make an impact statement. I stood first. Raymond, you're my nephew. I loved you. When your father died, I tried to help you and your brother, I began, my voice shaking. I let you stay in my home when you needed a place to live. I lent you money you never repaid. I treated you like family because you are family. You repaid me by stealing the most valuable thing I own, I continued. The land my grandparents bought, my parents cherished, my mother told me to protect. You forged my signature. You sold my property. You tried to take away my financial security in my old age. But worse than the theft was the betrayal, I said, tears forming. You looked me in the eye for months while planning to steal from me. You brought me fraudulent documents trying to trick me into signing away my land. When that didn't work, you forged my signature. You treated me not as your aunt who loved you, but as an obstacle to money you wanted. I'm 68 years old, I concluded. I live on a teacher's pension of $1,800 a month. That land was my safety net if I got sick, needed care, had an emergency. You tried to take that from me. You deserve every year of prison time the law allows. Letty Brooks spoke next. Raymond, you're my cousin. We grew up together. Our fathers were brothers, Letty said, her voice strong despite her age. When you offered to help me manage my rental property, I trusted you because you were family. You betrayed that trust by forging my signature and stealing property I'd owned for 30 years. I lost $180,000 because of you, Letty continued. But worse, I lost my ability to trust people. I'm 79 years old. I should be able to rely on family to help me, not steal from me. You took that security away. If I'd pressed charges 5 years ago when you stole from me, maybe you wouldn't have stolen from Earline and Geneva, Letty said, regret in her voice. I let you get away with it because you were family. That was a mistake. Family doesn't protect you from consequences when you commit crimes. Geneva Phillips's daughter spoke last, reading a letter her mother had written before she died. Raymond, you were my stepson. I raised you after your father and I married when you were 12 years old, the letter began. I treated you like my own child. When your father died, I tried to stay connected with you and your brother. When I was diagnosed with cancer and needed help with financial matters, you offered to help me refinance my house to lower my payments, the letter continued. Instead, you forged my signature, took $75,000, and left me with a higher mortgage payment I couldn't afford while I was dying of cancer. You stole from me while I was too sick to fight back, the letter said. That's not just theft, that's cruelty. I died before seeing you face justice. But I hope wherever I am now, I'll know you finally paid for what you did to me and to the other women you victimized." Geneva's daughter folded the letter, tears streaming down her face. "My mother deserved better than what you did to her, Raymond. I hope you rot in prison." Judge Martinez asked Raymond if he had anything to say before sentencing. Raymond stood, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to everyone I hurt. I made terrible mistakes. I was greedy and selfish. I betrayed people who loved me and trusted me. I deserve to be punished." "You're right about that," Judge Martinez said coldly. "Mr. Carter, you targeted 3 elderly women, your aunt, your cousin, and your dying stepmother, and stole over $640,000 from them through systematic fraud." "This wasn't a one-time mistake," Judge Martinez continued. "This was a pattern of predatory behavior over 5 years. You deliberately targeted vulnerable elderly relatives because you thought they'd be easy victims. You were wrong." "The law allows me to sentence you on each count separately," Judge Martinez said. "For the 3 counts of identity theft, I sentence you to 3 years on each count to run consecutively. That's 9 years. For the 3 counts of forgery, I sentence you to 4 years on each count to run consecutively. That's 12 years. For the 3 counts of fraud, I sentence you to 5 years on each count to run consecutively. That's 15 years. For the 3 counts of grand theft, I sentence you to 6 years on each count to run consecutively. That's 18 years. For conspiracy, I sentence you to 3 years to run concurrently with the other sentences. Total sentence, 54 years in state prison, Judge Martinez announced. The courtroom gasped. 54 years. Raymond was 42 years old. He'd be 96 when he got out if he lived that long. Raymond's face went white. His lawyer tried to speak, but Judge Martinez held up his hand. "I'm not finished," Judge Martinez said. "Mr. Carter, you destroyed 3 elderly women's sense of security and trust. You stole from your dying stepmother. You exploited your position as a trusted family member to commit fraud. Frankly, 54 years isn't enough for what you did. However, I'm going to make you eligible for parole after serving 40 years, Judge Martinez said. That means if you serve 40 years with good behavior, you can apply for parole at age 82. But make no mistake, you're spending the rest of your productive life in prison. Additionally, you're ordered to pay full restitution to all victims," Judge Martinez continued. "You owe Oakwood Development $385,000 for the fraudulent sale. You owe Earline Carter $100,000 in damages. You owe Letty Brooks $180,000. You owe Geneva Phillips's estate $75,000. Total restitution, $740,000. You'll pay this through prison wages and any assets you have," Judge Martinez concluded. "Given that prison wages are approximately 50 cents per day, you'll be paying restitution for the rest of your life and still won't come close to repaying what you stole." Raymond collapsed in his chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Marcus Carter, sentenced separately for his role as co-conspirator, received 15 years in prison and was ordered to pay $50,000 restitution, the amount he'd received from the stolen land sale. Floyd Martinez, the corrupt notary who'd cooperated with prosecutors, received 5 years in prison and permanent loss of his notary license. 2 months after sentencing, the legal paperwork was finalized and my land was officially returned to me. I drove out to the property for the first time since discovering it had been stolen. I walked through the 10 acres of woods and grass that my grandparents had bought 85 years ago, that my parents had protected, that my mother had told me to keep. The land was still mine. Raymond had tried to steal it, but I'd fought back and won. I thought about my mother's words. "Keep this land. Don't sell it unless you absolutely have to. It's your security." She'd been right, and now, at 68 years old, I still had that security. 1 year after opening my mail and discovering my land had been stolen, I sat on my porch reflecting on everything that had happened. Raymond was in prison serving his 54-year sentence. He'd be eligible for parole in 40 years when he was 82. I'd be 108, unlikely to still be alive to see it. Marcus was serving 15 years. Floyd Martinez was serving 5. My land had been returned to me. The developer had been compensated through restitution orders, though they'd likely never see most of that money. Justice had been served. But the emotional scars remained. "How are you doing?" Letty Brooks asked during one of our regular phone calls. She and I had become close friends through this ordeal. "I'm healing," I admitted. "Slowly, but I still feel betrayed. Raymond was family, I trusted him." "I know," Letty said. "I felt the same way after he stole from me. The theft hurt, but the betrayal hurt worse." "Do you think you'll ever forgive him?" I asked. "I don't know," Letty said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not now. Right now, I'm focused on healing and helping other elderly people avoid what happened to us." 6 months after Raymond's sentencing, I'd started speaking at senior centers and community groups about elder financial fraud. I'd tell my story, how my nephew had pressured me for months to give him my land, how he'd tried to trick me into signing fraudulent documents, how he'd ultimately forged my signature and stolen my property, and how I'd fought back and won. If someone is pressuring you to sign documents, stop and get a lawyer to review them first, I'd advise audiences. If someone tries to rush you or claims there's a deadline, that's a red flag. Trust your instincts, I'd continue. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I knew Raymond was up to something when he brought me those county filing documents. My instincts told me not to sign. I listened to those instincts, and that's why I still have my land. And if you discover theft, report it immediately, I'd emphasize. Even if it's family, especially if it's family. Raymond stole from me because he thought I wouldn't press charges against family. He was wrong. After each presentation, elderly people would approach me with their own concerns. My grandson keeps asking me to add him to my bank accounts. My daughter wants me to sign papers putting my house in her name. My nephew is pressuring me to loan him money against my property. I'd connect them with resources, elder law attorneys, adult protective services, financial advisors who specialized in protecting seniors from fraud. "You did something important by pressing charges," one elderly woman told me after a presentation. "You stopped Raymond from victimizing more people. If everyone who gets stolen from by family pressed charges, there'd be a lot less elder abuse." 18 months into Raymond's sentence, I started receiving letters from him. I didn't respond to the first 10 letters. I threw them away unopened. But the letters kept coming, every few weeks like clockwork. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I opened one. "Dear Aunt Earline, I'm writing from prison. I've been here for 18 months now, with 38 and a half more years to go before I'm eligible for parole. I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need to write what I should have said 18 months ago in court. What I did to you, and to Letty and Geneva, was unforgivable. I targeted elderly women who trusted me because I thought you'd be easy victims. I stole from you while pretending to care about you. I'm ashamed of who I was. Prison has given me a lot of time to think about my choices. I spent my whole life looking for easy money instead of working hard and building something legitimate. I viewed people, especially elderly relatives, as opportunities to exploit rather than people to love and protect. You were right when you testified that I treated you as an obstacle to money rather than as my aunt who loved me. That's exactly what I did, and I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't give you back the months of stress and heartbreak I caused. Sorry doesn't erase the betrayal, but it's all I can offer. I'm attending counseling programs here, trying to become someone different, someone who wouldn't steal from family. It's hard work, but I have 54 years to do it. I hope you've recovered your land. I hope you're at peace. I hope someday you can forgive me, even though I don't deserve it. I love you, Aunt Earline. I'm sorry for everything. Raymond. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Was Raymond's remorse genuine? Had prison actually changed him? Or was this just another manipulation? I didn't know, and I wasn't sure I cared. Raymond had spent 42 years becoming someone who'd steal from his elderly aunt. Whether he could spend 54 years becoming someone different was his problem, not mine. I put the letter in a box and didn't respond. 2 years after opening my mail and discovering my land had been stolen, I'd found peace. I was 70 years old, still living independently, still teaching part-time at the community college, still visiting my 10 acres regularly to walk through the woods my grandparents had bought. Raymond had stolen my land for a short time, but I'd gotten it back. He'd tried to take my security, but he'd failed. He'd betrayed my trust, but I'd rebuilt my life without him. Do you ever think about Raymond in prison? My daughter, Geneva, asked during one of her visits. Sometimes, I admitted. I wonder if he's changed, if he regrets what he did, if he's genuinely remorseful or just sorry he got caught. Does it matter? Geneva asked. Not really, I said. Raymond's journey is his own. My journey is mine. And my journey is about healing, helping others, and protecting what my family built. Mom, I'm proud of you, Geneva said. A lot of people would have just accepted the loss because Raymond was family. You fought back. You got your land back. You sent him to prison. That took courage. Your grandmother told me to protect this land, I said. I'm just doing what she asked. Now, at 70 years old, I sit on my porch looking at the trees in my backyard, knowing that 10 acres of beautiful wooded land sits waiting for me whenever I want to visit it. My family sold my land in secret. They forged my signature, stole my property, and sold it for $385,000. But the next morning, I opened my mail and discovered their crime. And instead of accepting the loss, instead of staying quiet because family doesn't press charges against family, I fought back. I called my lawyer. I filed a police report. I testified in court. I sent my nephew to prison for 54 years. And I got my land back. The land my grandparents bought in 1940. The land my parents protected. The land my mother told me to keep. The land Raymond tried to steal. It's still mine. Raymond thought he could steal from me because I was old, because I was family, because he thought I wouldn't fight back. He underestimated me. I'm 70 years old, and I've spent 2 years proving that age doesn't mean weakness. That being someone's aunt doesn't mean accepting theft. That family relationships don't excuse crimes. Raymond is 44 now, sitting in a prison cell with 38 more years before he's eligible for parole. He'll be 82 if he ever gets out. I'm 70, living independently, helping other seniors protect themselves from fraud, and still owning the 10 acres Raymond tried to steal. My family sold my land in secret. I opened my mail and discovered their crime. Their criminal case began that morning. And it ended with them in prison and me reclaiming everything they'd tried to take. That's justice. Not just punishment for Raymond, though 54 years is certainly that. But justice for me, getting my land back, seeing my nephew face consequences, and using my experience to help other elderly people avoid the same nightmare. Raymond stole my land for 4 months, but I got it back. And in doing so, I proved that it's never too late to fight back against fraud, even when it comes from family. Especially when it comes from family. My land is mine, my security is intact, my peace is restored. And Raymond, he has 54 years to think about what he did and why it was wrong. That's justice. 2 years after Raymond's arrest, Earline has complete peace. Raymond, sentenced to 54 years in prison, must serve 40 years before parole eligibility. He'll be 82. Marcus got 15 years. Floyd Martinez got 5 years. Judge Martinez said you targeted 3 elderly women, your aunt, cousin, and dying stepmother. You stole $640,000 through systematic fraud. 54 years isn't enough for what you did. Ordered to pay $740,000 restitution, $385K to developer, $100K to Earline, $180K to Letty, $75K to Geneva's estate. At 50 cents day prison wages, Raymond will never repay it. Earline's land was officially RETURNED. She walked through her 10 acres that her grandparents bought 85 years ago. She and Letty became friends through the ordeal. Earline became advocate speaking at senior centers about elder fraud. If someone pressures you to sign documents, get a lawyer. If you discover theft, report it even if it's family. Raymond writes apology letters from prison. Earline doesn't respond. At 70, Earline has peace. Her land is safe. Raymond is in prison. Justice is served. She proved age doesn't mean weakness. Family doesn't excuse crime, and it's never too late to fight back. This story proves that elder fraud victims can fight back and win. Family relationships don't excuse criminal behavior. Forged deeds can be reversed and property returned. Serial predators must be stopped through prosecution. Age doesn't mean helplessness. Documentation and lawyers are essential protections. Justice includes both punishment and recovery. Victims can become powerful advocates. If this story inspired you, please subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories. Smash that like button. Turn on notifications for new content. Drop a comment. Was 54 years appropriate for Raymond? Would you press charges against family? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, South Africa, Australia, Trinidad, India, Philippines? Let me know. Remember, if someone pressures you to sign property documents, stop and get a lawyer. If a family member asks to be added to your deed or accounts, protect yourself with legal advice. If you discover forged signatures or stolen property, file a police report immediately. Elder financial abuse is criminal. You have rights. Don't stay quiet because they're family. Family who commits crimes deserves prosecution. Earline's family forged her signature and sold her $400,000 land in secret. The next morning, she opened her mail, discovered the theft, and their criminal case began. Raymond got 54 years. Marcus got 15 years. Floyd got 5 years. Earline got her land back and became an advocate helping other seniors. She proved family theft must be prosecuted. Thank you for following this powerful journey from theft to discovery, from betrayal to prosecution, from victim to advocate with complete justice and peace. Until the next story, stay vigilant, protect your assets, and remember that it's never too late to fight back against fraud, even from family.